Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 7th of June, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So over the last few days, there's been kind of like this anticipated bill from Senator Cynthia Lummis in kind of like the US here around a new framework for regulating digital assets or crypto assets. Now, there's been a lot of FUD around this. There's been a lot of kind of like, speculation about exactly what this would entail. There were a bunch of people trying to paint the picture that ETH would get classified as a security, and I was just like, okay, that's just bizarre. It doesn't really make any sense. But anyway, we have the kind of like, I guess, not the exact bill yet, or not the exact kind of like legislation, but we have kind of like, I think, what is this? If I kind of like scroll through this, this just came out, so I'm just kind of like looking at it myself. But we basically have like a forward from the kind of like people describing this bill. Or actually, no, the bill is here as well. Sorry. Okay, here's the bill. So this is called the Responsible Financial Innovation Act, which is a regulatory framework for digital assets. Now, I haven't read the whole thing. As I said, this just came out before I hit record. But basically, if I was to search for ETH, I came up with basically what I kind of like said here, where and I quote, this is what's said in the kind of like framework. It says, digital assets that meet the definition of a commodity such as Bitcoin and Ether, which comprise more than half of digital asset market capitalization, will be regulated by the CFTC, which is the Commodity Futures Trade Commission in the US. That is not the SEC. Obviously, it's a different regulatory body, which means that this bill would basically state that Bitcoin and ETH are not securities. So, yeah. I mean, this bill isn't law yet. It still has to go through kind of like, you know, the whole process of getting a bill into law. But this bill, contrary to the popular narrative over the last couple of days, is not proposing to label ETH as a security. And it's good that they've kind of like named ETH here rather than kind of like leaving it ambiguous. But obviously, there will be some assets that will kind of like be labeled as security, right? They're apparently, well, according to this account DB on Twitter, which basically did a little bit of a summary here, the other kind of like provisions of this bill include, you know, purchases of goods and services under $200 using crypto will be tax-free, favors the CFTC as crypto's watchdog given authority over spot markets. Most coins will be defined as commodities, overseen by the CFTC, gives legal clarity on how to handle customer holdings, clarifies quote-unquote crypto broker, meaning to protect wallet providers and developers, 100% reserve, asset type, and detailed disclosure requirements for all payment stablecoin issuers. I mean, this is what I expected, like stablecoin issuers getting regulated even heavier. Obviously, that's going to happen, right? Especially the centralized stablecoins and kind of like, I guess, the CFTC becoming the kind of like watchdog. I mean, I expected that for obvious commodities, such as kind of like BTC and ETH, but it sounds like there's going to be other ones. I think, you know, it's funny as kind of like it is and as useless as I think a lot of these things are, something like a Dogecoin or a Litecoin, I would consider a commodity. I mean, I don't consider those things securities, right? But there are certain assets within crypto that are clear securities. I mean, XRP to me is a clear security. BNB is actually a clear security. And on that note, I kind of like put out a tweet asking why are people surprised that the SEC thinks that BNB is a security. There was actually a news story that broke today that the SEC is going after kind of like Binance for BNB. And then I continued in my tweet by saying, you know, besides XRP, I think BNB is the most obvious security in crypto. I mean, it lives or dies based on the activities of one centralized mega company that owns most of the supply. Without Binance, BNB would be essentially worthless. Like, it doesn't really have any worth beyond Binance. But even if you were to argue that BNB is used heavily within the Binance Smart Chain, that kind of like ecosystem is only held afloat by Binance. Like, there's nothing else going on there if Binance isn't participating in that, sponsoring that, getting users from the exchange to that. So BNB is pretty much like reliant on Binance, 100% reliant on Binance, I should say, which makes it, in my eyes, a clear security. And I think as much as I don't like the SEC, they kind of like, I think, have this one right. So kind of like on that front, you can kind of like look at the rest of the news here. It's actually pretty good. Like, I'm actually really happy with this news. I think that obviously this bill isn't going into law probably anytime soon. I'm not sure kind of like what the speed will be like here. And you can read the whole kind of like bill as well, or at least kind of like the highlights of it from kind of like this blog post here, which I'll link in the YouTube description. But this is like great. This is a great outcome in my eyes. I think this is killing the stupid FUD that kind of like, I guess, permeated over the last few days, especially around ETH. Like I saw there was this one account, and it was shared in the Discord channel, that basically put together a tweet thread explaining why they think ETH is going to be classified as a security in this bill, and why BTC dominance is going to go up and Bitcoin is going to go up, and holding anything else but Bitcoin is going to get you wrecked. And I read that thread and I'm just like, okay, this is basically a conspiracy, because there's no there was kind of like no indication that ETH was going to get classified as security, and two, they used the thread basically to shill some technical analysis on Bitcoin dominance, on the ratio, on the ETH-BTC ratio, and a bunch of different things. And I'm like, this is just weird. Like, really, it's just kind of like, feels like a trader trying to push a narrative, and it feels like a lot of traders are trying to do that right now. They're all positioning themselves as kind of like bearish on ETH for a number of imagined reasons, and then the kind of like the narrative around the merge being risky started coming to the surface and stuff like that. And I don't know, man. Like, I don't know, guys. Like, I look at these sorts of stuff and I'm just kind of like, what's going on? Like, why are people doing this? And then 9 times out of 10, it's just got to do with the fact that they're just trying to push a narrative because they have a trade on. Simple as that. And I know that may sound kind of like more benign than kind of like an ulterior motive beyond that, but that's really it. At the end of the day, people just want to make money, and one of the kind of like easiest ways to make money is jumping onto popular narratives and trends in the short term. Now, I say easiest, and I don't really mean easy. I mean kind of like that's the way people, I guess, especially experienced traders, they may kind of like only open a position for a few days or a couple of weeks, but it would be enough to inch out some profit for them that they'd be happy with. So if there is a popular narrative going on, they just add fuel to that fire. And you'll see a lot of these traders just flip-flop between narratives, and they never actually kind of like have a long-term thesis or a long-term narrative here. They definitely flip-flop between them. And just off topic for a sec, I've actually noticed myself saying kind of like the last couple of minutes, and now I'm annoying myself with it. Like, as I said in the YouTube comments, someone called me out on it the other day. I said in the YouTube comments that I don't notice myself saying it at all. It's a subconscious thing, but now I'm consciously noticing it, and I'm like, why am I saying it? And I just did it again. Anyway, back on topic here. I just think that like don't listen to those kind of like narratives. Don't listen to those narratives on Twitter, especially from short-term investors and traders and things like that. If you are a long-term investor, then really you can look at traders for guidance on things if you want, but at the end of the day, you shouldn't take their word as gospel or as kind of like anything to be seriously taken, because you're an investor, not a trader at the end of the day. Anyway, you can go read this kind of like bill here where you can basically see everything that's in it. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, and you can go check that out. And kind of like this from the DB account as well. But I think I'm going to move on from that for now onto this tweet that I put out where I basically said Rospten testnet merge is happening very soon. It's the 7th today. It could happen tomorrow, but it could get pushed to the 9th depending on TTD. Obviously, with TTD, we don't know the exact time that it could happen. It's kind of like hard to estimate, but expect it within the next 48 hours, I would say. Like anytime within the next kind of like 48 hours. Which is super exciting. Obviously, this is the first public testnet to be merged. As I mentioned yesterday, I think yesterday or the day before, if things go well with this, if all the clients are able to kind of like talk to each other and kind of like sync with each other, then definitely we will have a better idea around, I guess, mainnet from this. But at the same time, there's still 2 more public testnets to go after this. There's obviously the shadow forks that are going to be continuing, but this is the biggest event since the testing began, I think, for the merge, because the shadow forks are all well and good, but they are taking kind of like the live mainnet network, and they're very important. But I think doing this in such a way on kind of like a public test net is probably a bigger event. So I'll be definitely keeping an eye on this. Hopefully it doesn't happen when I'm sleeping. There is a pretty high chance that it'll happen when I'm sleeping, but we'll have to see when TTD is reached. The core devs will keep us updated on Twitter with this as well. I'm just super excited for it. This is going to be a big deal, guys. Like, seriously, I think even if there are issues with the kind of like merge on this testnet here, I think they're going to still proceed with the other public testnets. And by issues, I don't mean anything major. I mean, okay, so on the recent shadow fork and shadow fork 6, there, as I mentioned, I think there were a couple of minority clients that either weren't able to sync or something went wrong, and it was kind of it was a little fix that they had to input. And they did that, and I think it's fixed now. I don't know when Shadow Fork 7 is. I haven't kept up with it the last couple of days. It may be scheduled already, but maybe they're waiting till after Rospten is done to do that. But that's definitely going to happen there. I think we're going to do more shadow forks while the testnets are running, and I think they really want to get as close to perfect as possible. Maybe there's still one or two clients that have some minor issues that prevent them from doing, from everything being like 100% perfect. I don't think that would lead to any kind of delay, I guess, quote unquote delay in the merge timing. But as I said, we're going to have to wait for Rospten to see kind of like the more accurate timing around this. So that's what I'm waiting for. Expect it within the next 48 hours or so. All right, speaking of the merge, Lightclients here on Twitter had a great tweet thread today, and he started it by saying, after the merge, there will be a much larger fraction of quote-unquote at-home block producers than we've seen under proof of work. In order for these independent stakers to extract MEV, we need to think differently about our approach to block production. And this is a thread here. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it is quite a technical thread and also quite a long thread. Just wanted to highlight it here because of the fact that it's very important, I think, especially if you're a solo staker. And other things that you should be researching around this is PBS, which is Proposer Builder Separation, which I've mentioned before. You should be researching stuff around MEV. There's a bunch of links to this in Lightclients thread here, so you should definitely check that out if you haven't yet, and kind of like check out all these links and stuff here as well. But just wanted to kind of like highlight this thread for you guys so that you can go and give it a read and learn more about at-home MEV. Because, look, depending on what MEV looks like in a post-merge world and the extra yield you could get, there might be solo stakers that basically say, well, does it make more sense for me to join a pool, for example? And we obviously don't want that to happen. We don't want solo stakers to not be solo stakers anymore just because they're maybe going to get 1 or 2% extra yield from a pool, and that might mean a lot to them because maybe they're a big at-home solo staker, and that's kind of that's a lot of money to them. So in this thread, Lightclients explains how your solo stakers can potentially kind of extract this MEV and other kind of like strategies here as well. So definitely go give this thread a read. All right, we got a new blog post here from Patrick McCory, which is titled "Mental Models for Layer 1 and Layer 2." And he kind of posted this to Twitter with the caption saying, "Layer 1 and Layer 2 systems have different trust assumptions, system architectures, and agent participation. Our community has the wrong mental model to evaluate and compare L1 and L2 systems. I put together a short blog post to help demystify it." I highly recommend giving this a read. It's a great blog post. I think when it comes to Layer 1, Layer 2, the terminology at this point in time has lost some meaning and has also confused people and is also more marketing than kind of like, I guess, accurate framing at this point in time. And I think that's why Patrick put together this blog post. But essentially what the most important thing is the bridge contract, the actual contract that custodies the funds or holds the funds when you go from an L1 to an L2 or an L1 to a side chain or an L1 to another chain, because that will determine what your security level is. So for example, when you bridge from Ethereum mainnet, Ethereum layer 1, like the kind of Ethereum that we all know and love, the one with the high gas fees, right? And you bridge your assets into one of these quote unquote layer 2s, such as Optimism or Arbitrum or any of the other kind of roll-ups that post both their data and proofs to layer 1 Ethereum, they have a bridge contract that you go through, and in that bridge contract is all the funds. And I've explained bridges before on the refuel, so I'm not going to rehash this here. But that bridge contract is secured by Ethereum, right? That's secured by Ethereum layer 1. It's secured by miners today. In the future, it will be secured by Ethereum's validator set. Now, if you bridge off of Ethereum in one of these in one of these bridges onto another layer 1 or onto a side chain, well, then your assets are not custodied by a chain that is secured by Ethereum anymore. That chain is secured by its own validator set, which means that the assets that you have on Ethereum can only be unlocked by providing a kind of, I guess, a signature or a message from that other chain to come back. Or if there's a multi-sig for that contract on Ethereum, then potentially the people who control that multi-sig could release those funds to the relevant addresses. But that would be messy for a number of different reasons. So essentially, if for some reason you were to, just as a basic example, lose those funds on, say you bridge to, I guess like Avalanche, right? The C chain, because it's an EVM chain, and it's a distinctly separate layer 1. Say you bridge over to there and you lose your assets on there. Well, those assets are going to be forever stuck in the layer 1 Ethereum bridge contract that holds those assets when you bridge across. Now, of course, the bridge, I believe, is behind a multi-sig, and they could be withdrawn from that multi-sig by the, from that contract by the people who hold the multi-sig, but that's the only way it could be done. If you lose your assets on Avalanche, even though you bridged it, say you bridged ETH from Ethereum to Avalanche, if you lose it on Avalanche, you're not able to get that ETH back because you don't no longer technically have that ETH, right? You don't have that IOU on the other chain. So it really is all about bridges at the end of the day. Bridge security, how the bridge is secured, what's securing them, is it Ethereum layer 1 or is it another chain? And that's kind of what determines layer 1s and layer 2s. But at the same time, there are some people calling things layer 2s on Ethereum that don't post their data to Ethereum. And that's a whole nother kettle of fish, because those things are technically validiums or optimistic chains, where essentially your funds can't be stolen, but if you don't have access to the data that's kept off-chain, then you're not able to get your funds out, even though the bridge contract is still on Ethereum, it's still secured by Ethereum. Because that data isn't posted to Ethereum, Ethereum doesn't know that the state of the world. Ethereum doesn't know the state and doesn't know what to give you, doesn't know what kind of like the state of your assets are, and it will basically reject you from being able to access them without access to that data that matches the kind of the rest of the construction there. So that's why I always harp on about bridges, and I always go on about bridge security and making sure you know the different trade-offs and things like that. And I think Patrick in this blog post does a really great job of explaining all of that, so you should definitely check this out. But I wanted to give my own little breakdown there as well, because I think it's critically important to understand. And I think an even, I guess maybe simpler example is when you send your ETH from Ethereum, from your own wallet to Coinbase, for example, your ETH is going into Coinbase's address. Now, your ETH is still secured by the Ethereum network because Coinbase's address lives on the same Ethereum network as you do. But the thing is that Coinbase controls your funds. The only way you're getting access to those funds again is if Coinbase allows you to do that. Doesn't matter that the funds are secured by Ethereum. You're technically bridging in to Coinbase, for example. You're technically, it'd be like me sending my ETH to a friend and then saying to the friend, hey, can you hold this ETH for me for a while for whatever reason, right? And then can you send it back to me whenever I want it? If I go to that friend and I say to them, hey man, I want my ETH back now, can you just shoot it over? And they say no, well, there's no way for me to get that back now, because they're the one that essentially holds the keys. Even though it's secured by Ethereum, they hold the keys, they hold the access to my funds. So similar concepts all around here, but I recommend giving this blog post a read for a further breakdown, but hopefully that makes sense to you guys. And if you need further clarity on that, definitely Discord channel, of course, message me on there. I'll be happy to answer any questions around that. But there's lots of documentation or lots of literature on bridges at this point in time as well. Some of it is more complex than others, but I'm sure you can find it if you kind of Google for it as well. And I've talked about it before in the past too. There was one kind of covering basically as many bridges as possible. Someone from 1KX, I think it was Dennis, maybe, I think it was his name, from 1KX, put together a blog post basically covering the bridge landscape and kind of what it looks like, how your funds are secured, and how to kind of reason about these bridges as well. So you should check that out too. Not sure what you'd have to Google for that, but I'm sure you could find it if you went to 1KX, which is a fund, Googled them. You probably work your way backwards from there as well. All right, Pseudotheos has another great tweet thread out today where he said, what will the blockchain landscape look like 5 years from now? Here's my take on how it will play out. So this is a kind of relatively short thread here, basically talking about things like data availability platforms and generalized layer 2s and niche L2s and L3s and proto-dank sharding and dank sharding in general. Look, the next 5 years, I've written about this in the newsletter before, but the next 5 years in Ethereum development is pretty amazing. Really, I mean, all the things that Pseudotheos tweeted about the other day that I actually spoke about, such as dank sharding, PBS, layer 2s, all that sorts of stuff, is within the next 5 years, we're going to have all of that live. I expect it to be shorter than that, but I don't expect any of the major upgrades that are left for Ethereum to take longer than 5 years, except maybe the, I guess, very later stage things that are more like nice to haves rather than urgent things for the Ethereum roadmap. I think the current Ethereum roadmap could get us out to 10 years, the one that Vitalik has shared on Twitter before. But in terms of the stuff that I guess most needed, to get us to 90% complete Ethereum, for example, I think that's going to happen within the next 5 years pretty easily. Obviously, we have the merge coming up, then we have proto dank sharding next year, early next year, hopefully with withdrawals. And a bunch of other upgrades, and then we've got like a bunch of other things like state expiry and kind of like layer 2s continuing to grow and layer 3s and all these sorts of stuff happening, right? There's a lot happening in the Ethereum kind of core protocol ecosystem, but outside of that is the layer 2s. I mean, the funny thing is that each layer 2 can be considered its own chain. It's just secured by Ethereum instead of securing itself. Really, at the end of the day, these things are technically their own blockchain, but they're not a layer 1 because they're not securing themselves or not coming to consensus with their own validator set. They're outsourcing that to Ethereum layer 1. So their ecosystems could get, huge, right? I mean, the funny thing is that I don't think that it can ever get as big as Ethereum because it basically adds to Ethereum, and then Ethereum is the sum of kind of like its parts. But it can get really, really big. And I'm talking about the generalized ecosystems. There are obviously the app-specific layer 2s such as DYDX and Loopring. Loopring, I guess, is doing more, but DYDX is definitely the perfect example of an app-specific L2. But the generalized ones that we all know and love, obviously like Optimism, Arbitrum, what Polygon is doing, Starknet, ZK Sync, potentially Scroll, things like that. They are going to be massive if they succeed because of the fact that they're just platforms people can build on. Like, they're generalized platforms people can build on. There's going to be everything that we've known and loved deployed to Ethereum and so much more. So I think taking all that into account, the next 5 years, guys, like seriously, if all you do is stick around for the next 5 years and then maybe you just like, oh, well, like I want to try something else, I think you will have gotten the most exciting parts out of Ethereum. Like, I think Ethereum is always going to be exciting. I think Ethereum is going to keep getting kind of like improved for decades to come. But in terms of the most impactful stuff and the most, I guess, like anticipated and kind of like the stuff that we need done for Ethereum to even think about mass adoption, that's pretty much mostly happening within the next 5 years. And you could stretch that out to 10 years for some of the nice to haves, but within the next 5 years. So anyway, give this short thread from Pseudotheos a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so Awoki put out a tweet yesterday reminding us that Gitcoin Grants R14 starts in 2 days. There's a bit of a meme here. I think it starts tomorrow, tomorrow or the day after, basically. But yeah, it's coming. So you'll be able to donate, as usual, to your favorite projects on Gitcoin Grants here and have those donations matched. Of course, I'll be periodically reminding you during the matching round to do so. Don't forget to do it. You can do it at layer 2, which is obviously very, very cool. And you can also do it via the Polygon POS chain and things like that as well. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Gitcoin Grants and Gitcoin in general because I'm a huge public goods fan. I think this is going to be one of the biggest rounds yet, and I'm curious to see what it looks like in terms of kind of like output, considering we're in a pretty deep bear market right now. Obviously, the price of ETH has gone down a lot. People are feeling less rich than they were just a few months ago. But I think that even during these kind of like times, because Gitcoin is such an Ethereum public good in of itself, and so dear and close to Ethereans themselves, the ones that stick around, whether it's bull or bear markets, they're still going to give. I mean, what I give, it hasn't changed just because it's a bear market. I will be giving what I always give to the projects that I really want to support. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there who are doing that as well. I mentioned the other day, Coinbase is doing a $1 million kind of donation via Gitcoin Grants, and I think in this matching round they're going to match with $200,000. There'll be a bunch of other matching partners as well. I think for this round there's a few new mechanisms too, especially with the GTC token. I saw some talk around being able to kind of like stake the GTC token or lock it up on a grant or something like that in order to do a bunch of different things. I think Austin Griffith tweeted about this, so you can go check out his tweet thread on that. I'm probably butchering the explanation there, but definitely go check that one out. But yeah, I'll remind you guys when the round is live to go donate and everything like that. All right, finally here we have an update about Devcon. So for those of you who don't know, Devcon is the biggest Ethereum conference bar none. Like, it is huge. And the last one that happened was in Osaka in late 2019. Then obviously COVID happened and we haven't had one since. The next one will be happening in Bogota in Colombia in October. I think October 11th to 14th. And in this kind of like update today, basically applications are now open. So because Devcon is so big and popular, there is never enough tickets to go around. So you can apply today, or starting today, as a builder, a student, speaker, supporter, or volunteer, with ticket sales beginning soon. And it's going to be quite hard to get a ticket, I would imagine. I'm still on the fence about if I'm going to go or not. I really want to go. Like, I'm pretty sure all of my friends are going to be there, and like everyone that I haven't even met is pretty much going to be there. I know there were some concerns about Bogota that I've always brought up because of where it is and things like that, but I think those concerns are like massively overblown. I think people still think that Colombia is like what they saw in what was that show about Pablo Escobar that Netflix did? I don't know. I think people still kind of like have that mental model of Colombia, and it's like, well, no, from everything that I've heard and researched, it's nothing like that anymore. And I think Bogota is just like any other kind of like first world city at this point in time. And apparently it's gotten much better even over the last decade. So if any of you live there or live in Colombia, I'd love to hear from you on this. But I mean, for me at this point in time, it's just kind of like deciding whether it's kind of like worth the trip for me. And kind of if I can, I have to see if I've got anything around those dates or anything like that. But I don't think I should. So I'm gonna try my hardest to make it out to this, and I'm hoping to see as many of you as possible there if I do end up going, and if you end up going as well. But the funny thing is, even if you don't get a ticket, I think even just going if you can, and just kind of like hanging around, it's still going to be fine, because there's going to be a lot of side events like there always are. So even if you don't get a ticket, it might even be just worth going, depending on where you are in the world. I mean, if you're like me in Australia, and it's a really big trip, not as big as Europe, I think, but still pretty decently kind of like long, then maybe you don't want to kind of like use that up if you can't even get into the main events, right? But at the same time, I think it's still worth it to go to the side events if you're relatively close to there. But anyway, you can read this blog post. It's quite lengthy, and it's in different languages too. I think it's in Spanish here as well as English. So you can kind of like read that as well for an update here. But as I said, applications are live today. Here's ticket pricing here with different ticket types, and kind of a discount ticket applications as well, with main sale dates. So the first main sale will be going live on July 18th, which is, I guess, 5 or 6 weeks from now, just over 5 weeks from now. And then they're going to have other tranches, July 16th, August 3rd, August 11th, August 23rd. So hopefully you guys are able to get a ticket there. Hopefully I'm able to get a ticket. Maybe I can kind of sneak in as media. The other DevCons I went to, I've only been to actually one DevCon. I got in as media as part of Ether, but now they have the Daily Gwei, so hopefully I can get in as media, because I really want to go. Like, I really do want to go, but as I said, I'm still deciding whether I'm going to go or not, but I really do want to get around there. So definitely go check this out if you haven't yet. And with a couple more minutes left here, just want to quickly mention something. I remember talking about this last week, maybe. I mean, I talked about it when I did that kind of like mental health segment, but just generally, guys, like you've seen what happened over the markets over the last few days. We went up and then we went straight back down. Like I've explained this to you guys before. This is why you don't get your hopes up in a bear market. This is why you don't look at these kind of like things and immediately think, oh, the bull market's back on. Yeah, let's go. Leverage long. No, guys. Like, I'm telling you, like, this is going to happen a lot. It's going to go up. You're going to think it's going up more, and then it goes straight back down. That's just how it is. Like, if this is your first bear market, soak this experience in, because this is a very valuable experience to get. Like, and I think I don't think the bear market's going to last as long as it did last time, but I think just soaking it all in, getting kind of attuned with the market more. If you're even if you're an investor, but if you're a trader, it obviously means more for you. But just generally, it helps, right? It definitely helps with kind of having experience, and helps next time. Like, I know a bunch of you are looking to buy, I guess, I don't know if I call it the dip anymore, but you're looking to scoop up some bargains on some other tokens out there. Look, I don't know if these tokens, like, I'm not saying these tokens aren't going to go up in value again, but I don't know which ones are going to go up in value again. I don't know which ones are going to be here in even like a few months, let alone a year from today. And it's kind of hard to buy, as I said, because of the fact that it goes up and straight back down. That's why a lot of people use a DCA strategy, or dollar cost average strategy, because it works better than just going all in. Because, for example, say you kind of go all in at 2,000, then it drops to 1,700. Well, you've already blown all your money, and you can't buy the 1,700 price point. Whereas averaging it over time is typically considered to be better because of that. So I guess considering that, and kind of, I guess, keeping that in mind will probably help you a lot, I think, going forward. It's helped me a lot. I always think of that. Whenever I see the price going up now, I'm just like, I don't care. Until it gets to, I think, based on a technical perspective, until it actually gets above 3,600 and stays there, you can't even think about going back to all-time high, just from a technical perspective, and just from kind of like a sentiment and trend perspective as well. We're going to have to get there. But in saying that, we could go back up and just hang around in the 2000s for a while and then hang around in the low 3000s. It just happens like that. As I said, go look at the 2019 chart. It's actually a very good indicator of what to expect going forward. But anyway, enough of the market talk. I'm going to end it there for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.